Your bank account is lying to you. Every number you see, every bill you check, reinforces the story your logical mind has already accepted, that wealth is separate, scarce, or out of reach. And here's the shocking truth. Science now shows that your analytical brain, the part you trust to make decisions, is actually blocking financial flow. It obsesses over what already exists, current reality, and rejects what hasn't yet arrived. The most successful wealth creators don't wait for evidence. They operate from a state called blind faith, a psychological condition where the mind knows without needing to see that abundance is already present. If you rely on what you can observe with your eyes, you will stay stuck forever. Stop obsessing over your bills. Stop measuring scarcity. Research into the quantum observer effect, combined with neuroscience, proves that analyzing lack anchors it deeper into your nervous system. Your logical mind is not your friend. It is your wealth's greatest enemy. It demands proof, certainty, calculation. But abundance never arrives through logic or effort. It arrives through imagination, surrender, and identity. The proof is in. Your analytical ego is a poverty trap. Neuroscience shows that knowing, truly knowing, that you are already wealthy before the money appears, bypasses your rational mind's resistance. It is not effort that creates wealth. It is identity. Today, we are dismantling the rational mind. We move beyond affirmations, beyond surface-level visualization, and plant a seed deeper than thought. Blind faith is the highest form of financial intelligence, the only way to shift your nervous system, your beliefs, and your reality. If you listen carefully and let your mind settle, you will begin to feel it. The quiet certainty, the inner proof, the calm knowing that wealth is already yours. And when the guard finally sleeps, your reality has no choice but to follow. Logic is keeping you broke. Your smart mind rejects wealth. Your logical mind blocks abundance. But once you surrender, once you trust what cannot yet be seen, everything changes. The invisible enemy, logic, is keeping you broke. Not because you are incapable, not because you lack discipline, not because the world is unfair, but because the very part of you that helped you survive is now preventing you from expanding. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. There is nothing to fight here, nothing to force, only something to understand. For most of your life, you were taught that intelligence is power, that logic protects you, that analysis keeps you safe, that evidence determines truth. And in many areas of life, that is correct. Logic helps you avoid danger. It helps you calculate risk. It helps you navigate complexity. But wealth does not respond to survival logic. Wealth responds to identity. And identity lives beneath thought. You may be intelligent. You may be analytical. You may be capable of solving complex problems. And yet, your income has remained within a familiar range. Not random, not accidental. Familiar. Have you noticed that? No matter how much you learn, no matter how much you plan, your financial reality tends to circle a certain number. Up slightly, down slightly, but always returning to something known. That is not fate. That is neurological pattern protection. Your brain is not designed to make you wealthy. It is designed to keep you consistent. Consistency feels safe, and safety is the highest priority of your nervous system. Expansion is secondary. This is where the misunderstanding begins. When you look at your bank account, when you check your bills, when you calculate what you can afford, your logical mind is scanning for evidence. It asks, what is real right now? What has already happened? What does the data show? And once it finds the data, it builds a prediction. This is called predictive processing. Your brain does not react to reality. It predicts reality. And it predicts your financial future based on your financial past. If you have earned a certain amount for years, your brain encodes that as normal. Normal becomes expected. Expected becomes defended. So when you try to imagine something larger, your logical mind resists, not because it hates you, but because it detects mismatch. Mismatch equals uncertainty. Uncertainty equals potential threat, and the nervous system tightens. Notice this carefully. When you think about a much larger income, what happens in your body? Does your breath change? Does your chest tighten slightly? Is there a subtle question that arises? How? That single word is the guard waking up. How activates analysis? Analysis activates comparison. Comparison activates limitation. And limitation restores familiarity. You are not failing to manifest wealth. You are restoring internal equilibrium. Let this settle. You are not failing. You are defending what feels normal. And your logical mind is the defender. The reticular activating system, a small but powerful network in your brainstem, filters millions of pieces of information every second. You only perceive what matches your identity. If your identity is, I earn about this much, I struggle a little, money is complicated, then your perception will filter accordingly. Opportunities outside that identity will feel invisible, or unrealistic, or risky. Not because they are, but because they do not match your prediction model. This is why intelligence can become expensive. The more analytical you are, the more evidence you require. The more evidence you require, the less room imagination has. And imagination is the doorway to identity change. Most people attempt manifestation from the surface of the mind. They repeat affirmations. They visualize numbers. They attempt to raise vibration. But they do it while the guard is fully awake. The logical mind listens and says, "That is not true." And once it says that, the body contracts. And when the body contracts, the subconscious rejects the seed, because the subconscious does not respond to words, it responds to state. If the state is tension, you are reinforcing lack. If the state is urgency, you are reinforcing absence. If the state is effort, you are reinforcing striving. And striving is the identity of not yet. This is subtle, but profound. Your logical mind measures where you are. Your subconscious becomes where you live. And if those two conflict, the subconscious always wins, because it governs behavior. It governs perception. It governs micro decisions. And micro decisions build financial reality. The mind that helped you survive is not the mind that will expand you. Survival logic asks, is this safe? Expansion asks, is this aligned? Survival logic waits for proof. Expansion becomes proof. And right now, your survival logic is stronger. Not wrong, just dominant. You may have noticed something else. The smarter you are, the harder it becomes to believe without evidence. You pride yourself on rationality, on data, on realism. And yet, those same traits quietly reinforce your current income ceiling. Because logic is retrospective, it analyzes what has already happened. Wealth creation, however, is perspective. It requires internal certainty before external validation, and that feels irrational to the logical mind. So, you stand at an invisible threshold between evidence and identity, between calculation and conviction, between safety and expansion. And until the logical guard softens, nothing new enters. This is not mystical. It is neurological. And in the next chapter, we will explore the state where the guard sleeps, the state where identity can shift without resistance, the state where wealth stops feeling impossible and begins to feel inevitable. For now, just breathe. And consider the possibility that your intelligence has not failed you. It has simply been protecting you, and protection is not the same as prosperity. The state where logic sleeps. There is a moment every single day when your logical mind releases its grip. You experience it without noticing. You pass through it every night, and yet you have never been taught how powerful it is. It is the moment just before sleep, when your body is heavy, but your mind is still faintly aware, when your thoughts lose sharp edges and become images, when time feels softer. This is not imagination. This is neurology. Your brain operates in patterns of electrical activity. When you are awake, analyzing, comparing, solving, your brain is in what is called beta. Beta is fast. Beta is sharp. Beta is skeptical. Beta is the state of logic. And beta is the state that protects your current identity. In beta, the guard is alert. It questions everything. It measures against memory. It checks for consistency. If something feels unfamiliar, beta flags it, and the body tightens. But as you relax, as your breathing slows, as your muscles soften, you move into alpha. Alpha is lighter, more imaginative, less rigid. In alpha, ideas begin to feel possible, but the real shift happens deeper. When you approach theta, theta is the threshold state, the bridge between waking and sleep. In theta, the analytical filter weakens. The guard grows tired, the mind becomes receptive, and something extraordinary happens. Your brain becomes plastic, malleable, writable. In this state, your nervous system does not argue with imagery. It does not demand proof. It does not compare against your bank account. It accepts what feels emotionally real. This is why memory and imagination activate the same neural networks. To the subconscious, a vividly imagined experience and a remembered experience are not very different. and that is the opening. When you try to change your identity during beta, you meet resistance, but when you shift identity in theta, there is no debate, no negotiation, only absorption. This is why some of the most profound subconscious research in history was conducted in deep, relaxed states. Because in those states, beliefs can shift without confrontation. Now understand this carefully. The subconscious does not respond to effort. It responds to familiarity. If wealth feels unfamiliar, your body subtly resists it. If large numbers feel abstract, your nervous system treats them as foreign. But if something feels rehearsed, even if only internally, the body begins to accept it as normal, and normal is safe. Your logical mind asks, how would that happen? Your subconscious only asks, does this feel familiar? And familiarity is built through repetition of state, not repetition of words. Close your eyes for a moment. Notice your breathing. Let it slow. Let your tongue rest gently in your mouth. Allow your jaw to unclench. Feel the weight of your body against whatever supports you. There is no effort here, only softness. Now imagine something simple, not millions of dollars, not dramatic success, just relief. The quiet relief of knowing your financial life is handled. No urgency, no pressure, just calm completion. Notice how that feels. Subtle, gentle. Your shoulders might drop slightly. Your breath might deepen. This is the state. Not excitement, not adrenaline. Relief. Because if your wealth were truly secure, you would not be excited every second. You would be calm, and calm is what imprints. Most people make a mistake here. They try to generate intensity. They try to feel high vibration. But intensity activates beta. Beta wakes the guard, and the guard says, prove it. But calm certainty bypasses the guard. It does not trigger suspicion. It feels natural. It feels plausible. And the subconscious accepts plausible states more easily than dramatic fantasies. The wealthiest individuals often describe something similar, not constant excitement, but certainty, a knowing, an internal conviction before evidence appeared. From a psychological perspective, this is not mystical. It is pre-commitment identity. They decided who they were before the data confirmed it. And once identity stabilized, behavior followed. Opportunities were perceived differently. Risk tolerance shifted. Conversations changed tone. Micro decisions aligned. And over time, reality reorganized. You see, your brain is a prediction machine. It is constantly guessing what will happen next, and it bases those predictions on your identity. If your identity says, I earn around this level, your brain predicts outcomes that support it. You unconsciously act in ways that confirm it. You interpret events in ways that reinforce it. This is not intentional. It is automatic. But when you rehearse a different identity in theta, something shifts. The prediction model updates. And when predictions update, behavior shifts without force. You speak differently. You notice different opportunities. You take different risks. And those subtle shifts accumulate. The world appears to change. But what changed first was the model. This is what blind faith truly means, not ignoring reality, not denying evidence, but choosing identity before evidence, allowing emotional certainty to precede physical confirmation, and doing so in a state where the guard cannot argue. Blind faith, psychologically, is the suspension of analytical dominance. It is the quiet decision. This is who I am now, without debate. Without timeline, without how, because how activates beta. How wakes the guard. How restores old identity, but identity does not ask how. Identity assumes. In theta, you do not force belief. You rehearse normalcy. You let the feeling of financial stability become familiar. You allow relief to become ordinary. You drift into sleep as the version of yourself who no longer struggles. And when you wake, your nervous system has been subtly trained, not dramatically, but quietly. And quiet change is stable change. There is no need to rush, no need to strain. The guard does not respond to pressure, it responds to safety. And safety is created through repetition of calm certainty, night after night, breath after breath, soft rehearsal. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into why wealth can feel unsafe, into how your nervous system associates expansion with threat, into the subtle fear that logic has been protecting you from. Because until the body feels safe with abundance, the mind will keep defending scarcity. For now, remain still and notice this truth. The state where logic sleeps is the state where identity awakens. Why wealth feels unsafe to the nervous system. There is something most people never consider. It is possible that part of you does not feel safe with wealth, not consciously, not logically, but biologically. And biology always wins. Your nervous system was not designed for abundance. It was designed for survival. For thousands of years, survival meant stay with the tribe, avoid standing out, preserve energy, avoid unnecessary risk. Expansion was dangerous. Visibility was dangerous. Uncertainty was dangerous. And even though you live in a modern world, your nervous system still carries ancient instructions. It does not care about your goals. It cares about safety. Now consider this gently. If you suddenly doubled your income, what would change? More responsibility? More visibility? Higher expectations? Different social circles? Different standards? Your nervous system does not interpret these as exciting. It interprets them as unknown, and unknown activates threat detection, not dramatic threat, subtle threat, a tightening in the chest, a slight hesitation, a quiet doubt. That hesitation is not laziness, it is protection. If you grew up around financial stress, your body memorized the emotional tone of money. Was money associated with arguments, with tension, with disappointment, with pressure? If so, your nervous system encoded money equals stress. Even if you consciously desire wealth, your body may associate it with discomfort. And when something feels uncomfortable, the nervous system steers away. Subtly, quietly, automatically. This is why effort often backfires. You try harder, you push more, you visualize intensely, but pushing activates sympathetic arousal. the stress response, and stress narrows perception. When perception narrows, creativity drops, risk tolerance drops, opportunity awareness drops. You become conservative, careful, measured, and careful minds rarely create expansive outcomes. Your logical mind believes it is protecting you from failure. But deeper than failure, there is a fear of destabilization. Wealth changes identity. Identity changes relationships. Relationships affect belonging. And belonging is primal. If wealth subconsciously threatens belonging, the nervous system resists it, not loudly, quietly, through procrastination, through doubt, through not yet, through endless preparation. Let this settle. It is not that you cannot create wealth. It is that part of you is not convinced it is safe. Safety is the gatekeeper of expansion. Until the body feels safe with a new identity, the mind will keep circling the old one. Think about this. When you imagine extreme financial success, does it feel grounded? Or does it feel slightly elevated, slightly distant, slightly surreal? That distance is unfamiliarity, and unfamiliarity triggers micro-resistance. You might not even notice it, but your nervous system does, and it responds by restoring balance, back to what feels known, back to what feels manageable, back to what feels predictable. Predictability is soothing to the brain, even if the prediction is modest, even if the prediction includes struggle. Familiar struggle feels safer than unfamiliar expansion, because familiar struggle is known territory. You know how to survive it. You have rehearsed it. It is part of your identity. This is why identity rehearsal matters. You cannot convince your body with logic. You cannot argue your way into safety. You must rehearse safety. You must let wealth feel ordinary, not dramatic, not overwhelming. Ordinary. When wealth feels ordinary, the nervous system relaxes. And when it relaxes, possibility expands. Consider something simple. Imagine receiving an amount of money that feels slightly beyond your norm, not life-changing. Just moderately larger. Notice your body. Does it contract slightly? Does a thought arise like, that would be nice, but... That but is the guard. The guard is not logical alone. It is protective. It is ensuring you do not destabilize your internal system too quickly. Because rapid identity change feels like loss of control. And loss of control triggers threat detection. Wealth requires emotional regulation, not excitement. Regulation. The ability to remain calm while holding larger numbers. The ability to feel grounded while envisioning expansion. The ability to experience opportunity without urgency. This is nervous system maturity, and it is trained, not forced. This is also why many people sabotage financial growth. When income increases suddenly, stress increases, fear of loss increases, pressure increases. And unconsciously, they make decisions that restore familiarity, not because they are foolish, because their nervous system is overloaded. It seeks equilibrium, and equilibrium feels like the old baseline. So the real work is not attracting money. It is expanding your capacity to feel safe with it. Safety first, identity second. evidence third, in that order. Let your breath slow again. Place one hand gently over your chest. Feel the warmth. Notice the rhythm of your heart. This body has been protecting you for decades. It does not need to be fought. It needs to be guided. You are not trying to override protection. You are teaching it that expansion is safe. Say quietly in your mind, it is safe to have more. Not intensely, not dramatically, softly. Notice if any resistance appears. That resistance is not failure. It is information. It shows you where safety needs to be rehearsed. The nervous system learns through repetition, through calm exposure, through familiarity. So each time you enter theta and rehearse relief and allow wealth to feel normal, you are building tolerance. Tolerance becomes comfort. Comfort becomes identity. Identity becomes prediction. Prediction becomes behavior. Behavior becomes outcome. And outcome becomes reality. Your logical mind is not the villain. It has been loyal. It has kept you consistent. But consistency and prosperity are not the same. Consistency preserves. Prosperity expands. And expansion requires trust beyond logic. In the next chapter, we will explore how identity rewires behavior automatically, how small internal shifts lead to measurable external change, how the predictive brain reorganizes your perception of opportunity. Because once the nervous system feels safe, action becomes effortless, not forced, not dramatic, effortless. For now, remain still and let this truth settle. Wealth does not feel unsafe because you are incapable. It feels unsafe because it is unfamiliar, and unfamiliarity can be softened, gently, patiently, rehearsed into normalcy. In the next chapter, we will explore how identity rewires behavior automatically, how small internal shifts lead to measurable external change, how the predictive brain reorganizes your perception of opportunity. Because once the nervous system feels safe, action becomes effortless, not forced, not dramatic, effortless. For now, remain still and let this truth settle. Wealth does not feel unsafe because you are incapable. It feels unsafe because it is unfamiliar, and unfamiliarity can be softened, gently, patiently, rehearsed into normalcy. The predictive brain and behavioral drift. Your brain is not reacting to reality. It is predicting it. This is one of the most important psychological discoveries of modern neuroscience. You do not wake up and respond to the world as it is. You wake up and your brain generates a model of what it expects the world to be. And then you perceive through that model. If your identity has been, I earn about this much. Money requires effort. I have to be careful. Your brain builds predictions around those assumptions, and those predictions influence what you notice, what you ignore, what you attempt, what you avoid, not consciously, automatically. This is called predictive processing. The brain reduces uncertainty by forecasting outcomes. It prefers being right over being wealthy. Let that sink in. It prefers consistency over expansion. Because consistency reduces surprise. and surprise requires energy. Your nervous system conserves energy. Imagine two individuals walking into the same room. One identifies as financially limited. The other identifies as financially expanding. They see the same people, hear the same conversations, observe the same opportunities, but they do not perceive the same possibilities, because perception is filtered through identity. The first sees risk, the second sees leverage. The first sees potential embarrassment. The second sees potential growth. Nothing outside changed. Only the internal model differed. This is why identity precedes income. Income is behavioral output. Behavior is influenced by perception. Perception is shaped by prediction. Prediction is shaped by identity, and identity lives beneath logic. When you shift identity in theta, you are not attracting money. You are altering prediction. When prediction alters, micro-behaviors adjust. You may speak with slightly more certainty. You may hesitate slightly less. You may follow up where you once withdrew. You may say yes where you once said maybe. These shifts feel small, but small shifts compound over weeks, over months, into measurable change. This is called behavioral drift. When identity shifts internally, behavior drifts toward alignment, not forced, not dramatic, subtle. And subtle changes are sustainable. The logical mind believes action must be forced, but forced action often collapses because it conflicts with identity. You can push yourself temporarily, but if identity remains unchanged, you return to baseline. This is why income often rises and then falls. The nervous system restores equilibrium back to familiar territory. But when identity changes first, action feels natural, not effortful, natural. You do not feel like you are trying to become someone. You feel like you are acting in accordance with who you are. This is stability. This is power. Let us examine something quietly. Think about a time in your life when you felt deeply confident in an area, perhaps not financial, but personal. Notice how decisions felt different then. You did not overthink. You did not hesitate excessively. You did not seek constant reassurance. Confidence simplified action. Because confidence was identity. Now imagine that same simplicity applied to money. Calm certainty, no urgency, no panic, just clarity. That clarity shifts behavior automatically. The predictive brain is efficient. It minimizes cognitive load. If your identity says, "I am financially capable," your brain stops scanning for reasons you are not. It reallocates attention toward possibility, toward leverage, toward opportunity. And because attention shifts, reality seems to shift. But it is perception reorganizing. Consider a magnet beneath iron filings. When the magnet moves, the filings reorganize instantly. They do not debate. They do not resist. They align. Your identity is the magnet. Your behaviors, perceptions, and outcomes are the filings. When identity stabilizes, alignment follows. This is why asking how is destabilizing. How will this happen? How can I afford that? How is this realistic? How activates beta? Beta activates comparison. Comparison activates limitation. Limitation restores old prediction. And the cycle continues. Identity does not ask how. Identity assumes. A financially stable identity does not question whether stability is possible. It operates from it. This is not delusion. It is orientation. Orientation determines movement. Let us soften again. Take a slow breath. Imagine waking up tomorrow with quiet financial certainty, not millions overnight, just stability, security, the absence of tension. Notice how decisions feel in that state. Would you delay opportunities? Would you avoid conversations? Would you shrink your voice? Or would you move calmly? The answer reveals everything. When you rehearse this state nightly, your predictive brain updates gradually. It becomes familiar with this version of you, and familiarity reduces resistance. Resistance lowers. Action simplifies. Opportunities feel less intimidating. And over time, results reflect internal shift. This is not magic. It is model updating. It is neural recalibration. It is behavioral drift toward a new baseline. And it begins in stillness, not hustle, not strain. Stillness. In the next chapter, we will dissolve the final barrier, the illusion of how, the need for timeline, the obsession with process. Because once identity stabilizes, mechanism becomes secondary. For now, remain calm and understand this. Your logical mind measures reality. Your predictive mind creates it. And your identity commands both. Becoming before evidence. Everything you have heard so far leads here, not to technique, not to affirmation, not to force, but to becoming, before evidence appears. The logical mind says, I will believe it when I see it. But the creative principle within you says, you will see it when you believe it, not belief as hope, belief as identity. There is a difference. Hope waits. Identity assumes. You have been trained to use evidence as proof of reality. But psychologically, evidence is lagging data. It reflects old identity, old predictions, old nervous system baselines. If you wait for evidence to change before you change, you remain synchronized with the past. Becoming before evidence means allowing the internal shift without external confirmation. This is uncomfortable for the analytical mind because it feels irrational, but it is neurologically consistent. Your brain updates through repetition of experience. When you repeatedly enter a calm state and rehearse sufficiency, your predictive model begins adjusting. At first, subtly, then steadily, then automatically. You are not convincing yourself. You are conditioning familiarity. Familiarity becomes comfort. Comfort becomes normal. Normal becomes identity. Identity shapes action. Action shapes income. Income becomes evidence. But the order cannot be reversed. There is a quiet discipline here, not loud motivation, not emotional highs, quiet discipline. Each night as you drift toward sleep, you allow the guard to rest, you allow the analytical mind to quiet, and you inhabit, softly, the version of you for whom wealth is ordinary. You do not visualize extravagance. You do not rehearse luxury. You rehearse stability, relief, completion, because relief is believable, and believability lowers resistance. Notice something important. When you imagine dramatic wealth, the body often tenses. It feels distant. But when you imagine simple security, the body softens. Start there. The nervous system must feel safe before it can expand further. Security first, then growth. Becoming before evidence also changes how you interpret setbacks. If identity is unstable, a temporary challenge feels like confirmation of failure. But if identity is stable, a challenge feels like adjustment. The difference is internal position. One identity says, "See, I knew it." The other says, "This is part of it." Identity determines narrative. Narrative determines persistence. Persistence determines outcome. This is why emotional regulation is wealth intelligence. Not spreadsheets alone, not strategy alone. Regulation, the ability to remain steady while the external rearranges. Because rearrangement often precedes expansion, and rearrangement can look chaotic before it looks aligned. Blind faith, psychologically understood, is not ignorance. It is trust in your updated internal model before proof arrives. It is calm expectancy, not desperate anticipation. Calm expectancy. The same calm you feel when you know the sun will rise. You do not panic overnight. You do not demand signs. You rest because it is assumed. Wealth must feel the same. Let your breath slow again. Feel the weight of your body. Notice the quiet space behind your thoughts. This space is where identity shifts. Not in argument, not in force, in space, in repetition, in gentle rehearsal. From this place, action becomes clear, not dramatic, not overwhelming, clear. You will feel nudges, small impulses. Send the email, start the conversation, follow the idea. Because when identity updates, intuition sharpens, not mystical intuition, pattern recognition. Your brain begins detecting opportunities that match the new internal model. And you will move toward them without inner conflict. This is becoming before evidence. This is neurological manifestation, not magic, not fantasy. Alignment, safety, prediction, behavioral drift, stabilized identity, and inevitable outcome. You no longer need to fight your logical mind. You understand it. It measures the past, but you are no longer living from the past. You are rehearsing the inevitable, quietly, night after night, until it feels ordinary. And when it feels ordinary, it arrives without drama. Let this final truth settle. Logic is not your enemy. It is simply late. Identity leads. Evidence follows. You do not need to chase wealth. You need to normalize it. You need to feel safe with it. You need to become it before you see it. And when you do, the world rearranges gently to match the self you have stabilized within. Rest now in that knowing. No urgency, no striving, just quiet certainty. You are not trying to manifest. You are updating, and updated identity creates updated reality. I will see you in the version of you that no longer questions it.